This week you will be working on annotation and annotating the first few chapters of Shooting Kabul. Annotating means active reading. So it means that you're marking up your text with lots of notes either directly in the book in the margins, with highlighters, or with sticky notes, or with all three methods. So what exactly are you taking note of? On the left side, you should be writing the summary or the main ideas, vocabulary that you don't know, and information about the characters and the setting. On the right side, you should be writing your reactions to what you read, your opinions, ideas that surprise you or that you can relate to, predictions, and questions. So why should you annotate? Doesn't it sound like a lot of work? Yes, but it's worth it because annotations are building blocks for writing. They help you understand what you are reading so you can develop your own ideas in relation to the text. So if you don't understand what you're reading, which is what you're trying to do here on this left side when you summarize, then you cannot come up with thoughtful and meaningful opinions, which is what you're doing here on the right side. So let's practice with page 1 of Shooting Kabul. So now I'll talk you through the annotations that I added to page 1. I'll start by reading the first paragraph. "It's a perfect night to run away," thought Fadi, casting a brooding look at the bright sheen of the moon through the cracked backseat window. It reminded him of the first line of the book from the mixed-up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. So I first highlighted Fadi, and then I wrote his name here because I assume that he's the main character since he's the first person that is mentioned, and it looks like it's in his voice. And then because he's saying it's the perfect night to run away, I assume that he is running away at night. And because he mentions the cracked backseat window, I also assume that he's in a car or a truck. Because that window is cracked, this is where I'm going to write my observations and my opinions. I think he's in a dangerous situation, and maybe he isn't safe. If you're running away at night and you're in the back seat and the window's cracked, that's just what I think. So there were also some words that I didn't understand. Brooding, I highlighted, and I looked it up in the dictionary, and it means thinking in a depressed, thinking deep or depressed thoughts. So Fadi is casting a brooding look, so I guess maybe he is thinking deeply and he's depressed. Sheen, I also highlighted, and it means shine or luster. So that makes sense because the moon would shine. And I thought this was very interesting that he references this book. He is comparing his situation to what happens in this book from the mixed-up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. So my opinion here was that this shows me Fadi really enjoys reading if he's referencing a book. And I also really like reading. And I like it because it can help me escape the real world sometimes. It's a nice escape. So maybe Fadi is escaping too from this dangerous situation. So this is just my guess, and this is just what I am deducing or guessing from what I've read so far, but I don't know for sure. So then he mentions Claudia. She knew that she could never pull off the old-fashioned kind of running away. I highlighted Claudia because it's another character, and because she comes right after the title of the book, and it's in quotes here, I assume that Claudia is the main character in the book and that he's comparing his story to her story. So now what I want to know, my question is what happens in this book? I think maybe if I figure out what happens in this book, maybe I'll be able to understand Fadi better. So let's keep reading. Fadi was only halfway through the first chapter, so he didn't know how successful Claudia had been in her getaway. Old-fashioned or not, but he sure hoped that his family would be. If they weren't, they were going to be in an awful lot of trouble. So old-fashioned, that's a word that I want to highlight, and I looked that up, and it means something that happens more in the past, or happened more in the past, something that's not modern. So I'm wondering what exactly an old-fashioned getaway is, or escape is, and if there are different kinds of running away. And then later on he mentions his family. And so now I understand that he is with his family escaping, and he hopes that they get away safely. So this just, again, reinforces to me that they are in a dangerous situation. And my question is, what are they running away from? And why are they running away? And will they be safe? And as we talked about before, just by looking at the cover and at the title, we predicted that this would be taking place in Afghanistan, but we don't know for sure. But maybe if it is in Afghanistan, they are trying to escape the war. So as you see, we have all of our questions, our opinions, our reactions on the right side. We have notes about the summary, the characters, and the setting. I'll put Afghanistan at night, right? That's the setting, we think. And so we love messy books. And remember, the more notes that you make in your book, the more you'll have to discuss and say about it, and the more you'll have to write. So good luck. It's your turn.